Bai is a lonely loser who would rather die a gooner than get an actual girlfriend, but everything changes when all the popular girls want him for themselves. It all started. One day Bai was attending to his vice president duties. He found a letter from a secret admirer asking for them to meet, but Bai had no idea how to deal with the situation since he had zero experience with girls. The secret admirer turned out to be Yoyo, so Bai tried to weasel out of it by bringing up the council activities. However, Yoyo threatened to rip his joystick from his dangle region if he didn't listen to her. She placed him under her chesticles so he wouldn't escape. Then, she asked him to be her boyfriend. At that moment, there was only one thought in Baiko's head.
No! God, please, no!
She was head of the archery club, so if he refused her, he would never leave there alive. However, he thought up a brilliant plan and was about to lay it on her when he heard another voice stealing his line. The most popular girl, Ningya, was using the "I already have a crush" line to reject her 30th love confession that day. Yoyo hoped Baiko wasn't about to give the same lame excuse, making Baiko wonder what kind of bad timing that was. Unfortunately, Baiko couldn't think of a better excuse, so Yoyo asked who he's crushing on, threatening to confess every day if he didn't drop a name. Baiko folded under the pressure and ended up naming Ningyi. However, Yoyo was relieved since his negative Riz would never stand a chance with her, so she promised to make him fall in love with her in the future. That evening, Baiko wonders how he managed to screw up a rejection when the council president Tong Sin walked in with a skirt shorter than your attention span. She sat on his desk to ask what he was doing there so late, but Baiko was concerned about what trick she was trying to play. Tong Sin licked her lips as she offered him some coffee as a reward, but Baiko rejected it, knowing this can't cook. Tong Sin turns on the guilt trip, accusing him of not appreciating her kindness, and Baiko is helpless to this attack. Once again, he folds and humbly accepts his poison drink.
And I've decided that I want to die.
However, before he can drink it, he notices another letter and wonders who it's from. At the same moment, Tong Sin asks him what he thinks of love letters. When he wonders if she knows about Yoyo, she whispers in his ears and asks about the one right in front of them. Suddenly, they hear someone outside asking for President Tong Sin. Tong Sin hugs Baiko tighter and starts fiddling with his button. Then she tells the person outside to come in. A shy boy walks in with a letter till he sees they're about to discover how babies are made and leaves. Tong Sin sighs in relief and says her problem has been solved, but Baiko still hasn't caught on. She hides the button she stole from him and assures Baiko will never understand women. Baiko tells her to think about his safety, so she apologizes and offers him some incense. The alarms in his head start ringing as he wonders what she's up to now, so she grabs his hand and asks if he thinks she's some She then tells him to cover his eyes and warns him not to peek if he enjoys having two balls. She then ties her hair into a bun, but not for what you're thinking. She starts taking off her clothes, making Baiko wonder what all that strange noise is. Tong Sin finally turns him around and tells him to open up as she reveals a black dress. Baiko gets oppressed by the view of her snow globes, so he asks why she'd risk changing in the office. Tong Sin explains that she had the outfit on under her uniform the entire time. She tries to give him a demonstration, but Baiko assures her his mind beat her to it. When he tells her to be on her way, she remembers the button she stole and scolds him for being careless enough to lose it. She then hooks him up with her brooch and finally leaves him to finish her job for her. When she leaves, she rejoices over finally getting his button. Back in the office, Baiko opens up the letter and finds an invitation to a cafe from none other than Ningyi. He can't believe his eyes and wonders if this is yet another confession. Later, Baiko meets her at the cafe and asks why she needs to see him. She reveals that Yoyo had played the jealous girlfriend and force-fed her, all the reasons why they can't be together. Baiko does a spit take as he tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Ningyi guesses he just used her as an excuse to refuse Yoyo. Baiko is relieved and wonders why he thought someone of such caliber would want to confess to him. He apologizes for using her as an excuse, but Ningyi suddenly asks him to be her boyfriend. When Baiko starts experiencing some technical difficulties, Ningyi explains that she only needs him to pretend to be one. Since Yoyo won't give up even after being rejected, she'll have no choice to third couple. Baiko isn't convinced, so Ningyi tells him to think about it and give her an answer in 2 days. The next morning, Baiko wakes up to the best alarm clock there is, except it's his sister. He freaks out and tells her he hadn't showered so he stinks, but she assures him he smells good.
Stop it. Get some help.
Baekhyeo tries to leave her behind, but she keeps sticking to him and asking for some of his warmth. Later, she switches to maid mode and serves him some scrambled eggs. While they eat, Baekhyeo asks what she would do to reject someone who confesses to her and refuses to give up. She gets shy and reveals that she'd say she has a boyfriend and show them a picture of her brother. That crimson red flag flies over his head as he wonders if Ningyi's deal is the only way out. When Baekhyeo tries to leave for school, he finds Yoeo waiting for him in her archery clothes. He thinks his life might be in danger and tries to run for it, but she dropkicks him and puts him on a leash. Thankfully, she only wanted him to attend an event at the archery club as their first date. Suddenly, Yoeo spots a guy who looks AI-generated and glares at him, but when Baekhyeo tries to ask who he is, she calls him darling and asks him to go backstage with her. She threatens that if he doesn't play along, he'll end up a shooting prop. Then she hands him her bag and tells him to wait for her. The living deepfake walks up to Baekhyeo and smugly introduces himself as the archery captain of the rival school. He figures Yoeo must have roped Baekhyeo into coming and encourages him to leave if he isn't actually interested in archery. But Baekhyeo begins to sense something's off. He rejects Lingu's offer, insisting he's representing the student council, and walks off while Yoeo secretly watches him and smiles. Later, Baekhyeo watches as Yoeo does her thing, wondering when he'll be released from the torture. Yoeo's bag falls over and he discovers her secret stash of steamy magazines. Suddenly, he hears some voices coming from the room beside him and goes to investigate. There, he overhears Lingu and a group of girls talking smack about Yoeo. The girls offer to make Yoeo pay for slapping him, but he tells them to let it go. Yoeo finds Baekhyeo eavesdropping and asks if he's secretly peeking at other girls. When Baekhyeo says he's seen enough girls already, Yoeo praises him since she's the only one worthy of his gaze. She decides to reward him by letting him put her socks on, but despite how he looks, Baekhyeo doesn't have a foot fetish. Unfortunately, he develops one after Yoeo points one of her arrows at him. He becomes the blackmailed prince, charming to her pirated Cinderella, just to make her happy, so she thanks him for coming with her. Baekhyeo asks if she knows Lingu well, so Yoeo tries to cover up by asking if he's jealous of him. However, she reveals that the previous day, Lingu had approached her after they finished setting up for the stage event. He tried to pin her to the wall and act sly, so she helped him activate his face muscles. She doesn't know if he has run his mouth to anyone else, but some people seemed angry at her at the event today. Before Baekhyeo can respond, Yoeo has already switched to snooze mode, though she's only pretending. Baekhyeo takes a closer look and realizes something. He can finally slip away without any trouble. Yoeo stops him before he gets far and scolds him for not carrying her home like a true gentleman. Baekhyeo wonders if she's being so try-hard thanks to those brain-rot magazines, so Yoeo gets embarrassed that her little secret is out and tells him to head back alone. As Baekhyeo heads back, he wonders why Lingu would lie to the others, and decides he needs to keep the girls from troubling Yoeo. That's when he realizes that Lingu had been trying to get rid of him the entire time so the girls could have her alone. Meanwhile, the girls had just ambushed Yoeo, who didn't understand what they could possibly want with her. The leader slapped Yoeo as payback for Lingu, so Yoeo retaliated by saying trash likes to stick together. This angered the mean girl, who hoped to knock a tooth out with her next attack, but she was stopped by Baekhyeo, who tried to tell her she was being manipulated. The girl violated his face and said it was none of his business, making Baekhyeo consider if it would be rude to choke the life out of her, but Yoeo begged him to butt out of it. Baekhyeo agreed and picked her up to leave, so she smiled happily as she rested safely on his chest. The Slapmaster 3000 insisted they weren't going anywhere, so Baekhyeo called out for Lingu to stop hiding. Lingu appeared and tried to push the blame on the girls, but Baekhyeo decked him in the face. He then informed him of the CCTV footage he had of his little stunt yesterday, so Lingu immediately begged for forgiveness, exposing the truth to the girls. Yoeo finally walked off triumphantly with Baekhyeo. Later, she handed him an ice coke to apply on his face, so he doesn't have to explain the slap marks. Yoeo asks how Baekhyeo knew he was behind it, and Baekhyeo explains that anyone with that cheap haircut is likely a criminal. Yoeo teases him for acting as the hero saving the beauty, so Baekhyeo stares deep into her eyes and asks where the beauty is. Yoeo manages to ignore the diss and strengthen her decision to chase after him. Later that day, Baekhyio's phone blows up with angry texts from Yoeo. wondering why he ran away from her earlier. Before he could respond, his sister demanded to know if he was chatting with bad girls again, but he assured her he was shopping online. She wasn't buying it, so she grabbed the phone to see for herself, but she got upset when she saw his password wasn't her birthday. To teach him a lesson, she decided to keep his phone and tried to hide it between her pleasure hills, but the phone rudely dropped to the floor immediately, calling her flat in several languages. Bai Qiao quickly changed the subject and said they could do anything she liked. Unfortunately, he didn't expect to find himself on her lap, wondering if they were really related. However, she insists that cleaning people's ears is very satisfying and licks her lips as she starts to go in. After some rounds, she blows into his ears, which makes him turn around and discover her victorious secret. When she wonders what the problem is, he faces the other way and says he'd rather go back to talking to bad girls. Just then, he notices some messages from Yoyo and Tong Xin. Exhausted from the woes of forming a harem, Bai Qiao says he doesn't want to go to school the next day. His sister reminds him that the next day is Saturday, which means he forgot about her dance, but Bai Qiao saves himself by claiming that's the reason he won't go to school. After promising her he'll be there, she runs to bed, leaving him to deal with the other pests in his life. Tong Xin tells him she'll come over tomorrow and play with him, but Bai Qiao realizes he can't let his sister find out or he's toast. The next morning, his sister texts him that she'd be expecting him that night, so Bai Qiao boasts of how smart he is for fleeing his house early so Tong Xin wouldn't find him. Unfortunately, he spoke too soon as a familiar pair of chess balls pressed into his back, and it turned out to be Tong Xin. Later, they both sit down over carnival food when Bai Qiao asks how she knew he'd be in the library. Tong Xin asks him if he knows how rabbits are easily caught, but Bai Qiao hides behind his food so he doesn't stare right at her bubble chest. That's when she reveals that rabbits are too timid. One small sound from the hunter, and they'll rush to other places, so the hunter only needs to study its habits before setting a trap. She then refers to Bai Qiao as her little rabbit, making him realize he was set up this entire time. Bai Qiao tries to taunt her by saying she's too smart to find a boyfriend, but she doesn't mind as long as the guy she likes can't escape from her. Bai Qiao gets shivers down his spine, so he asks what exactly she wants from him, and she says she wants to go on a blind date with him. Bai Qiao immediately says his goodbyes, claiming he's not feeling so well, so Tong Xin trips him and puts his hand on her cannonball, threatening to scream out assault. Bai Qiao tries to call her bluff, but she grabs him by his invisible bunny ears and asks if he really wants to try her, making Bai Qiao suddenly feel much better. Later, she explains that she only needs him to meet someone, so he doesn't have to be so nervous, but he tells her he's been getting death threats ever since she used him the other day. Tong Xin offers to bribe him with something no man can resist, the new GTA 6 game. Bai Qiao wonders how she could possibly have it before it comes out. Then he takes her up on her offer and begs for a date. On the way, Bai Qiao asks who the person they're meeting is, so she explains that he's some rich kid that has been doing business with her family. One night, their parents got drunk and suggested they were both old enough to get pimped. Bai Qiao asks why she doesn't just reject him, so she grabs onto him and says she actually hasn't tried it yet. Suddenly, a voice calls out for her, surprised to see her there. It turns out to be Ning Yag, who says she forgot to give Bai Qiao some coffee coupons, telling him not to forget to redeem them. That's when he remembers he was supposed to give her an answer today. To make matters worse, his sister reminded him to attend her event at the exact same time. Tong Xin wonders how Bai Qiao is so close to the queen of their school behind her back, but Bai Qiao grabs her to hurry it up to her blind date. They arrive at a store to find Levi Ackerman with Nerd Rise. He asks what Bai Qiao is doing there, so she says she bumped into him outside, and since he's the vice president, she invited him to join them, hoping he doesn't mind. Chen Yu claims any friend of Tong Xin's is a friend of his, but deep down he wishes Bai Qiao would get his slimy hands off his girl. Some moments later, Tong Xin laments bringing him more onto the date since Bai Qiao is busy flirting with the enemy instead of her. She tries to take charge and feed him some of his food so he can have stamina for other activities later. This pisses Chen Yu off, so he stands up and invites Bai Qiao to have drinks while he secretly plants his wallet on Bai Qiao. Bai Qiao tries to refuse, but Tong Xin thinks it's the perfect opportunity to act drunk and fall into Bai Qiao's lap. She insists they have the drink, which surprises Bai Qiao, who's never seen her drink before, while Chen Yu grins suspiciously. They eat the glasses and Tong Xin prepares to put on the performance of her life when she suddenly notices Bai Qiao already out for the count. Chen Yu claims he had no idea Bai Qiao was a lightweight and suggests they take him home to rest and then find a place to talk. But Tong-sin says she's not interested in talking till Baiko's okay. Chen-yu agrees and offers to pay the bill while Tong-sin tries to help Baiko up. Suddenly, Chen-yu's wallet falls from his pocket just as Chen-yu starts searching for it. Chen-yu picks up the wallet and accuses Baiko of hiding it away, warning him that stealing is a crime. Since Baiko is still drunk, he doesn't understand what's going on, so Chen-yu threatens to get the police involved if he wants to play dumb. Tong-sin warns Chen-yu that she'll embarrass him if he keeps acting up, but when Chen-yu insists that Baiko is a corrupt guy, Tong-sin tosses her wine at him. When he asks who she thinks she is, she explains she doesn't care what he thinks of her, but she won't tolerate him playing tricks on Baiko, especially ones that could cost him his future. If she hadn't found out about this early, she would have buried his body under a bridge, so Chen-yu finally gets the message. She then pulls Baiko close and says it's all her fault, and helps him up to get out of there. Later, Baiko wakes up on Tong-sin's lap and asks what the time is. When she says 4, he panics, thinking he's missed his sister's dance, but Tong-sin warns him he's too easy to fool. She advises him not to trust people who are wearing masks and smiling, including her. Baiko thanks her for the tips, so she smushes his face with her coconuts and offers to make a deal with him. Baiko quickly jumps up and says he's heading to the theater, so Tong-sin grabs his arm and says she'll be coming with. When Baiko tries to tell her he's only got one ticket, she pulls out 2 VIP tickets that she got from her dad's friend. She claims it was all a coincidence, but Baiko can smell. With no other choice, he lets her tag along, but she insists on putting her hand on his back, claiming he's not sober yet. Suddenly, she takes off her shoes, hoping to see Baiko's cultured reaction to her bare feet. Later at the theater, Tong-sin laments over learning nothing about Baiko since he offered her his shoes instead of asking for her feet. Finder ID. Baiko nervously watches his sister's performance till he notices her dress getting unraveled, causing her to face the other way and ruin the whole routine. As Baiko wonders what could possibly have happened, a blonde mystery girl watches from behind the curtains. Afterward, Lulu stays backstage while the winners of the tournament are announced. Baiko shows up to check on her, so Lulu runs to hug him, lamenting how their efforts have gone to waste. Suddenly, Tong-sin shows up and starts giving Lulu a pep talk about putting effort in. Lulu immediately tries to protect her brother from the White Hair Witch, while Tong-sin insists that since she's the president's sister, she's also her sister. Baiko starts to sweat buckets as the girls face off, remembering that the last time his sister met Tong-sin, she turned into Michael Myers. Lulu drags her brother to go home with her, but Tong-sin pulls him back, assuring her she's very good to Baiko. The girls demand to know who he chooses, but when Baiko sees those massive milk jugs, he asks them why they can't all get along. Lulu almost loses it when she sees the White Witch holding Baiko's hand and insists that he only belongs to her. Suddenly, another lunatic shows up and calls out for Lulu, happy that they'll get to work together again since they lost the tournament. Wook Seo-won says it's finally nice to meet her brother, since Lulu won't shut up about him. When she sees Tong-sin, she assumes it must be Baiko's girlfriend and asks if she can have Lulu for some hours. Lulu tells her to stop and drags her away to stop being a nuisance. Lulu tells Baiko to wait for her to get changed, leaving him alone with Wook Seo-won. Baiko remembers his conversation with Tong-sin, who suspected it was Wook Seo-won that tampered with Lulu's costume, since she seemed unusually happy to come in 4th place. Baiko struggles to think of the right way to get her to confess, so he asks about the wardrobe malfunction. But Wook Seo-won nervously says she has no idea how it happened. Baiko can tell she's capping hard. Then his phone suddenly starts ringing. It turns out to be Yoyo, who's been getting aired all day, so she asks him where he is. When he tells her he's in the theater, Baiko figures he can use the call to fool Wook Seo-won. He starts talking about the CCTV surveillance backstage, but this completely throws Yoyo off guard. Baiko says he'll be right there and even tells her to call the police, prompting Wook Seo-won to rush to him and confess. However, when Yoyo heard him talking about the police, she thought he might be getting kidnapped and figured it was finally time for her to save him for a change. Back at the theater, Wook Seo-won apologizes and explains she was just trying to get Lulu to keep dancing. Baiko says that's the most dumbass reason he's ever heard, but Wook Seo-won insists that the Lulu was going to quit dancing because of him. Apparently, Lulu was always looking forward to spending time with her brother. Even when Wook Seo-won confessed to Lulu, her reason for rejection was a picture of Baiko. Bai Qiao is shocked by that last part, but Wu Xiuwen asks if he's okay with Lulu giving up her dance dreams. Later, Bai Qiao and Lulu head home together while Lulu holds up an umbrella. Bai Qiao asks if she really wants to give up dancing and warns that she might regret it, but Lulu doesn't know what he's talking about. Lulu insists that she will never give up until she surpasses that woman and becomes the pride of her brother. That's when Bai Qiao remembers she who shall not be named. Now that 2 years have passed, he no longer feels the same about her leaving, but he'll never forget the pain he felt. That's why he can't accept confessions anymore. Lulu asks if Bai Qiao is about to cry over female Voldemort again, so Bai Qiao claims he was only thinking of what they'd have for dinner. Bai Qiao says Lulu should have a better reason for dancing, so Lulu reminds him of the story of the life that hangs in the balance. Suddenly, Bai Qiao remembers what he taught her years ago. Back then, he was watching his favorite episode of Ultraman, when Lulu asked him to play with her. That's when he told her the story of a life hanging in the balance. Of course, it was all to get her to go to dance class so he could watch Ultraman, but he didn't expect she would really cling to those words as motivation for her dance. In the end, Bai Qiao forgot how she started dancing in the first place, so Lulu accused him of not treating her right as a sister. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a car approaching, so when it splashed some water at them, Lulu tried to use the umbrella to protect them. But Bai Qiao turned his back and sacrificed himself. When they returned home, Bai Qiao helped her dry off, telling her not to do too much, even with the dance thing. Lulu says she just wants to take care of her brother, which is what she discussed with Wu Xiuwen, but Bai Qiao assures her that's his job. He then tells her she can't give up dancing as she still has other teams to beat. Lulu is worried that the White Witch is rubbing off on Bai Qiao, but he assures her there's nothing wrong with overtaking people. Lulu sees some water on Bai Qiao and offers to dry it for him, but when he tries to refuse, she jumps on him and starts to tickle. Suddenly, Bai Qiao remembers his meeting with Ning Yi. He immediately rushed to the coffee store where Ning Yi calmly asked if he had resolved all his issues. When Bai Qiao asked how she knew, she showed him the desperate text from Yoyo, who apparently had been worried sick, so Ming Ya had promised to handle it. Bai Qiao realizes that he has to solve his problems once and for all, or they'll only get worse. He sits with Ning Yu and brings up the matter of pretending to be lovers, so she asks him what he chooses. The next morning, Yoyo waits for Bai Qiao again, shocking Bai Qiao with her level of desperation. Yoyo claimed it was just a coincidence and began asking what he did with Ning Yi last night. Bai Qiao knows this is the perfect time to tell her what he agreed with Ning Yi, but he's interrupted when Yoyo suddenly turns around and starts taking something out of her bag. Suddenly, she pulls out a pair of handcuffs, thinking he'd be into that kind of stuff. When Bai Qiao asks where she learned all this, she holds out her favorite book, which has the book version of. She realizes she forgot something and turns around, so Bai Qiao uses the opportunity to run for it. At that moment, Ning Yi walks down the hall and notices Yoyo bugging Bai Qiao again. Bai Qiao manages to escape, but his phone rings and yet another nuisance is on the line. Tong Xin asks how his weekend went and Bai Qiao says it was fun, but deep down he blames her for making Lulu punish him with food after. Tong Xin asks him if he'll accompany her to a tennis club later, but Bai Qiao conveniently seems to run out of service and ends the call at that point. Tong Xin calls her trusted minion, Shen Wei, and tasks her to find out where Bai Qiao will be taking his next class. Meanwhile, Bai Qiao is getting tired of getting passed around like a sweaty basketball when yet another girl reaches for his hand. This time, it's Ning Yi who asks why Yoyo is still chasing after him. She suggests that since they reached a deal last night, they might as well get all the misunderstandings out of the way. She moves closer to him, and at that exact moment, Tong Xin walks up behind them and drops all the papers she was holding. Yoyo also comes running up excitedly until she sees her man in the arms of another. The girls can't believe their eyes as Ning Yi tells Bai Qiao to lower his head so she can get all the dust out. Yoyo is the first to crack as she runs off crying. Tong Xin tries to talk to Bai Qiao, but when she starts fumbling over her words, she gives up and runs out too. Ning Yi says she heard Yoyo's cries of doom and asks if he's okay with it, so Bai Qiao says it's for the best since he couldn't bring himself to tell her. Ning Yi suggests they head to the literature club to discuss when suddenly, a boy calls out to Ning Yi, hoping to talk to her about the literature club too. Bai Qiao was about to excuse himself when he notices Ning Yi's eyes begging him to play his role. He gets the message and tells the guy they don't need to talk in private if it's about the club. The boy immediately asks what his business is, so Ningye reminds him that he's the vice president and also her boyfriend. The boy's reality shatters as he sinks into a musical rendition of Celine Dion's All By Myself. Ningyi apologizes for springing that up on him, but Bai Kao says it's better if he spreads the news. When he asks if that was the simp she's troubled to refuse, Ningyi says there's someone else. She then suggests they up their game to make their relationship believable, and tells him to join the literature club. After Bai Kao agrees, she then brings up some advice from TikTok that says couples like to leave their mark on each other. Before Bai Kao can think too much, Ningyi grabs his neck and pulls him close enough to leave a lip print on his neck. Ningyi says she has some things to take care of, but suggests they start going to school together from tomorrow, which Bai Kao agrees to. Later, Bai Kao realizes Tong Xin would probably hang him by the balls when she finds out he joined the literature club. He then wonders how he manages to keep getting dragged from one problem to another. Suddenly, his next problem shows up in the form of Yoyo, who says she has something important to ask him. Some moments later, Bai Kao buys them some ice cream while Yoyo waits for him. She'll need it to soften the blow, so he hopes she's not a diet, but thankfully she grabs the extra calories without hesitation. Shen then asks when his thing with Ningya happened, so Bai Kao says it was just yesterday. Yoyo asks why he isn't afraid that she'll tell Ningyi she's dating him, so Bai Kao says Ningyi is pretty understanding, which shuts Yoyo right up. She asks if he really likes Ningyi, and he reminds her that he told her from the beginning. Yoyo insists that she's way out of his league, but Bai Kao says Ningye thinks he's a trustworthy person. Yoyo tries to tell him that's what she thought of him the first time they met, but she changes the topic. When she realizes the next person he'll be sharing ice cream with is Ningyi, tears start streaming down her face. She then says she always wants to be the one sitting next to him. As the wind blows, one of her ribbons comes off, so she asks him to help her tie it again. As Bai Kao fixes it back, he realizes he won't be able to do this for her anymore. Yoyo asks if that's the last time he'll help her, and when he says it probably is, she starts bawling and saying she doesn't have anyone else to grab ice cream with. The waterworks flow in full force as she regrets ever starting to like him. Bai Kao feels bad, but he knows it would be better not to say anything so she can let out all her emotions. He holds her one last time as their non-existent relationship comes to an end. Later, Bai Kao returns home to Lulu, who offers him some ice cream she got for them to share. But Bai Kao says he just wants to rest. As he rests, Lulu comes to check on him with her usual excess energy. Bai Kao asks what she's doing there, so she offers to do anything he wants to make him feel better. Bai Kao is touched by how much she cares and agrees to let her help. Meanwhile, Ning Yai sends texts asking about their meetup the next day. The next morning, Bai Kao walks to school feeling like people are staring lasers at him. Suddenly, two of them call his attention and ask if he is shamelessly stalking Ningyi. Surprisingly, Bai Kao keeps it cool and points out the gum sticker on one of their arms that could be caught during school inspection, and also brings up their upcoming test that requires the paper they're holding. The boys immediately apologize for messing around and ask if the rumors of him and Ningyi are true. Just then, Ningyi walks up and apologizes for being late. Bai Kao smoothly heads to meet her and assures her it's fine, while the Ningyi fan club reps cry over losing their goddess. Ningyi asks if the boys are bothering him, but Bai Kao covers for them and says they were actually helping. Bai Kao hands him a lemon tea. She made herself causing more background crying noises, as the simp's chance at love sinks into oblivion. Bai Kao offers to carry her bag, and though Ningyi tries to talk him out of it, Bai Kao insists it's the normal boyfriend thing to do. Unfortunately, the bank sinks faster than the Titanic, making him wonder why she needs so many back-breaking textbooks. Bai Kao says literature kids probably bench textbooks instead of dumbbells, so Ningyi explains that literature is about the portrayal of life. She runs her fingers up and down his body as she continues to give him a free lesson, then ends it with a knock on his dense head, cause she knows he didn't hear a word she said. She tries to make it simpler and asks if he loves Yoyo. He explains that though he's known her a long time and she's an interesting person, but she's only friend zone material. Ningyi says those feelings can be documented in a book as literature, but before they can continue, a girl overflowing with cursed energy shows up. It turns out to be Shen Wei, who scolds him for being on a date when the council meeting is almost over. She threatens to spill some of his blood, so Bai Kao starts running for his life as she chases him. However, Ningyi stops her by flicking some common sense back into her. At the council office, Tong Sin sulks on a table as she holds up the ribbon she made with Bad Kyo's stolen button. Meanwhile, Shenhui marches a clueless Bad Kyo to the council office angrily. She asks if he told Tong Sin about his relationship with Ning Yi, so Bad Kyo says she walked in on them the other day. Shenhui figured he'd screwed up, so she advises him to apologize to Tong Sin and drags him off by the tie, making him wonder what he needs to apologize for. Shenhui intends to fix their equally non-existent relationship, so she shoves Bai Kyo into the room with Tong Sin and locks the door, promising to let them starve to death unless they make up. Tong Sin quickly tucks the ribbon in her pocket so he doesn't see it, and then the two stare awkwardly at each other. Tong Sin tries to break the ice, but Bai Kyo interrupts when he points to the mountain of paperwork she's been ignoring. Tong Sin starts going on about the difference between fish and Bai Kyo, and when he wonders what the heck she's talking about, she suddenly says that she likes him. Bai Kyo has no idea how to respond till he casually brushes it off, thinking she's just playing tricks on him again. Tong Sin takes the opportunity to weasel out and says since Bai Kyo likes seafood, she just claims to like fish, so he'd like her more. Tong Sin starts to tease him about thinking something else when Shenhui interrupts to call. Tong Sin nervously tries to get her to back off, but Shenhui insists that his cluelessness is getting painful. Tong Sin says it's too late to tell him the truth, so Shenhui offers to tell him herself. Tong Sin refuses and pushes her out, so they sit and wonder what she can do next. Shenhui comes up with a devious plan to steal Bai Kyo's back and whispers it into Tong Sin's ears. Some moments later, Tong Sin walks in confidently, ready to resume their work. Bai Kyo asks if there's something she wants to talk to him about, but Shenhui butts in and says it's a girl's secret. She then tries to leave for the swimming club when Bai Kyo asks if the girls are planning to bomb the school. Tong Sin smacks the foolishness out of him and orders him back to work. Their task is to sort through the club's verifications before the principal blows their heads off. Tong Sin wonders why Shenhui let the paperwork get this much, but when Bai Kyo reminds her that was actually her job, she suggests they work on it together. They start approving budgets for the different clubs till they arrive at the literature club, and Tong Sin gets a wicked idea. She comes up with some cowshit reason and says the club has to be disbanded, but Bai Kyo stops her before she can sign it off, reminding her to treat all clubs fairly and equally. He then hands her the calculator to check while he approves, so Tong Sin calls him strict. Tong Sin says they need the help of such a strict vice president, and Bai Kyo immediately gets a bad feeling when she asks for them to meet on Saturday. Later, Bai Kyo goes shopping with Lulu, who tries to get him in some pink swim trunks, but he insists that he has a pair already. Lulu says they might have disappeared, so Bai Kyo wonders how and checks his bag. Suddenly, he grabs Ning Yi's lemon tea and realizes he can't let Lulu find out, so he shoves it back and says he really does need a new swimsuit. Lulu can tell he's hiding something and insists on knowing what's in the bag, so Bai Kyo claims there's some octopus mutant bug in the bag to scare her off. Lulu doesn't buy it for a second and insists on checking when Bai Kyo suddenly realizes something and asks how she knew his swimming trunks were gone. Lulu initially gets nervous till she flashes a demon smile and plans to scream it out loud. The reason his trunks disappeared is that last week she wanted to go out in a skirt, but she couldn't find any safety pants when she happened to find his trunks. Before she can detail the rest of the inappropriate story, Bai Kyo shuts her up and agrees to buy another one. He then asks if she'd like to pick one herself, though she thinks he must want her to dress down for him. Bai Kyo smacks her head before she gives anyone the wrong idea, but this only makes her think he must be thinking cultured thoughts of her. Lulu grabs 2 swimsuits and starts wondering how much she's willing to spend. Bai Kyo remembers that Lulu started saving money years ago, so she can definitely afford it. He asks her how much she's saved, but she says it's not enough for what she wants to buy. Though Bai Kyo is super curious to know what it is, he decides it's best she keeps it a secret. Even if she's secretly a degenerate, she's at least a cute one. Bai Kyo offers to buy the swimsuit for her so she doesn't waste her money when he suddenly realizes Lulu might look just a little too cute in that swimsuit. If some Dan Schneider creep saw her in this, he might offer her a show on Nickelodeon, so he hands her a onesie to buy instead. Lulu thinks he's being stingy and leaves to try it on when a girl from their school walks up to ask if he's Bai Kyo. She tosses a bag at him and explains that Yoyo hasn't shown up to school for 2 days, and since he's the only one who knows where she lives, he's got to deliver her class notes. Lulu returns to show off her onesie when she notices Bai Kyo with a bag and starts to chase him, demanding to know which brother snatcher is after him this time. After escaping his demon sister, Baekhyeo arrives at Yoeo's house, wondering what to say. He tries to practice his opening line, but they all make him sound like a waste man talking out of his. While he panics, Yoeo's mom walks up behind him. Once inside, Baekhyeo awkwardly sits with a cup of tea while Auntie Chang asks him if he knows anything about her daughter getting rejected. Baekhyeo sweats rivers as he claims to know nothing about it, so Auntie Chang more or less threatens him to stay for dinner. She then heads to the kitchen while Baekhyeo wonders what he just agreed to. Just then Yoeo returns from the store, surprised to see Baekhyeo. She immediately runs to her mom and informs her that she's seeing a hallucination of Baekhyeo on the couch. Her mom plays along and confirms that the doctor did say she dropped a few brain cells recently, but she suggests taking her hallucination up to her room to play. Yoeo bravely approaches him and calls him an illusion. Baekhyeo is already used to her crackhead ways and informs her of the notes her classmates wrote for her. Yoeo is impressed by how spot on the illusion is, and Baekhyeo starts wondering if this is schizophrenia at work. When he tries to hand her the notes, she refuses to touch them so the illusion won't disappear. Unfortunately, her plan goes south when she slips on a confused duck toy and lands right on his lap. Baekhyeo tries not to while Yoeo gets comfortable, refusing to open her eyes and see that he's gone. By the time she opens them, Baekhyeu's soul has almost completed its ascent to heaven. The blockhead finally realizes Baekhyeo is the real deal, but even the earth refuses to open up and swallow this hot mess. Yoeo immediately runs upstairs blaming her mom for not telling her the truth, so Auntie Chang tells Baekhyeo that since he's the one who broke her, he's got to fix it. Baekhyeo wonders why he's got to do it, so she threatens to keep him prisoner, making Baekhyeo think she might be related to Tong Sin in some way. Baekhyeo finds himself back at square one as he knocks on her door, asking for her. Yoeo is getting changed and tells him Yoeo might come down if he waits in the living room. Suddenly, Baekhyeo notices a red liquid seeping under the door and thinks Yoeo might be trying to unalive herself, so he busts inside to stop her. It turns out that she's just in her underwear, so she covers herself with her piggy jacket and insists Yoeo isn't in the room. Baekhyeo asks how Yoeo's doing, so she explains that she had a fever, but the doctor says she'll be allowed to return to school the next day. Baekhyeo tells her she got juice spilled at the entrance, so Yoeo freaks out and checks on her cupcakes, relieved they're still okay. She rushes back to offer Baekhyeo some, and when she tries some, she excitedly asks how it tastes. Baekhyeo says it's delicious and wonders why he's never tasted it at her mom's store, so Yoeo proudly says she's the master chef behind it. Baekhyeo reminds her that she said she's not Yoeo, so Yoeo turns back and insists that she's not, but Baekhyeo tells her to stop playing such childish games. Suddenly, Yoeo starts singing a song about a person in love waiting by the sea, saying Yoeo wanted her to deliver it to him. When Yoeo continues her depressing song, Baekhyeo apologizes for making her sad, but Yoeo says he doesn't need to be sorry. She then asks how things are with his new girlfriend, so Baekhyeo says they're okay. Yoeo informs him that if he was her boyfriend, she'd never let him visit another girl alone. Baekhyeo timidly says he was asked to come, so he had no choice. While Baekhyeo is flustered, Yoeo thinks it's the best time to get changed. Baekhyeo tries to tell her something, but when he sees her shaking so much, he assumes she must be crying. He tells her they need to talk face to face and pulls the jacket off her only to find her midway to being bare plotted, so she tries to end his life for peeking twice. Later, Baekhyeo walks home relieved that the awkwardness has been diffused. Unfortunately, he also agreed to work at Auntie Chang's store on weekends, unable to say no after everything he's done. Suddenly, he finds Ning Yi petting a cute cat who must have lived a cultured past life. Baekhyeo asks why she's not home yet, so she explains she has to return her books to the library. Suddenly, the cat jumps toward Baekhyeo, pulling Ning Yi onto his chest. Baekhyeo freaks out, so the cat rears its mischievous head, and he pulls out of its happy place and scolds it for getting a feel before him. Shinwei secretly watches them as Ning Yi tells Baekhyeo to go home. She then reports to Tong Tad that they're acting too formally to be lovers. The cat walks up to her, and she praises it for doing a good job, as apparently the furball is an honorary member of the council. The next morning, Baekhyeo remembers how Lulu had left that morning for a sleepover, warning him not to have any girls over while she's gone. Now that Baekhyeu's the only one at home, he whips out a can of cola and other diabetes influencers and celebrates being a free man. Sadly, he spoke too soon as the doorbell rings. He assumes Lulu must have forgotten something, but when he opens up, he finds Tong Sin waiting. Bai Kyo tries to close the door and correct his mistake, but Tong Sin asks if he forgot about the important task they had that day. Bai Kyo slaps his head from frustration and tells her she can't come in on Lulu's orders. While they fight it out, the neighbor calls out and congratulates Bai Kyo on scoring a fully packaged girlfriend.
Nice.
Bai Kyo says she's just one of the friend zone inmates, but the neighbor advises him to hit that, saying she won't tell his parents. Bai Kyo quickly shoves her in the house before things get any weirder while Tong Sin tries to fake her innocence. Tong Sin accuses Bai Kyo of not appreciating her efforts to come early, and he can bring cookies. Then she puts one in her mouth and asks if he wants one. Bai Kyo figures this is another one of her tricks to get him to pose for an ugly picture. But when Tong Sin gets closer, he wonders if she's actually serious. The idiot opens that thirsty mouth of his to get some, but Tong Sin pushes him back and says the cookie is no longer available. She then tries a magic trick and says she'll pull it from behind the ear, but Bai Kyo thinks she means hers and leans forward till he accidentally kisses her. They immediately separate, both red in the face, so Bai Kyo apologizes for misunderstanding her. He then says he'll get changed, so they can leave, but Tong Sin gets mad and pulls him back. She accuses him of trying to kiss and dip, and calls him a heartless scumbag. Later, they go shopping for a file cabinet and Bai Kyo wonders why she couldn't have ordered online, but Tong Sin insists it was better to go in person. Suddenly, she notices Bai Kyo standing in front of a glowing orb, getting into character. He announces himself as the Lord of the Moon and starts reciting other mumbo-jumbo, while Tong Sin records premium blackmail material. She asks him what his powers are, and the idiot keeps going on about drinking blood when he turns around and sees Tong Sin's camera. He realizes she recorded it all, so he throws himself before her and begs her to delete the evidence. Bai Kyo suggests another magic trick, but before she can finish, she remembers that disaster from earlier on. Instead, she shoves the phone between her pleasure hills and tells him to delete it by himself. Bai Kyo makes the smart choice and changes the topic to the cabinets they came all the way to buy. Tong Sin sits on top of one, giving him a view of heaven above. Bai Kyo nervously turns away, realizing she likes to sit in strange places. He looks at the price tag and says the council would go bankrupt, but Tong Sin suggests they use the literature club's funding to buy it. Bai Kyo wonders what she has against the club, but Tong Sin ignores him and goes to talk to the manager. In the end, they didn't take the literature club's money, but they did go bankrupt. While they were at the office, Bai Kyo hesitated to tell her something on his mind. It might affect their friendship, but if he doesn't say it, he'll be very uncomfortable. Bai Kyo calls her attention but struggles to speak up, making Tong Sin nervous. She wonders if he finally realizes how she feels, so she turns red and tells him to go ahead. Unfortunately, when Bai Kyo asks for the GT6 he was promised, Tong Sin feels cold water washing her high expectations away. Angered, Tong Sin asks him to repeat himself, and the idiot also does it, causing her to awaken her Jinchuriki and overflow with the Nine Tails chakra. Bai Kyo tries to beg for his life and says she could go to jail for murder, so Tong Sin pulls out her phone to threaten him with a fate worse than death. As Bai Kyo's own foolish words ring from her cell phone, he realizes his social life is in danger. He begs her to erase the video, saying his life is already full of problems. Tong Sin says he has to give her a gift since they went out, so Bai Kyo pulls out a white fox plushie and asks if it'll do. He says they're both white with red eyes, but when he gets to the personality, Tong Sin flashes the phone at him, so he says the white symbolizes her pure heart and spirit. Last of all, the fox is cute like her. Tong Sin tries to prove difficult, but she finally accepts the plushie while Bai Kyo thanks Shen Wei for the extra lessons on how to win Tong Sin over. Next, the pair head out for snacks, and while they eat, Tong Sin reminds him of the first time they met and asks him who the bouquet he gave her was originally for. Bai Kyo looks sad and tells her he can't talk about it, so Tong Sin apologizes for asking. On the same note, Bai Kyo asks if it's okay to ask a similar question, so Tong Sin says he'll have to pay a consulting fee. When Bai Kyo says he didn't ask for any fee, she tells him it's his loss and he'll have to buy her a drink. Bai Kyo reminds her of the day they first met. It was raining when Bai Kyo saw her standing at the bus stop without an umbrella or an intention to move. Bai Kyo gave her the umbrella and offered to take her to her house, which touched Tong Sin, who was already in tears. Tongxin says she doesn't want to talk about it either and requests for her drink, so Bai Qiao admits defeat and hands it to her. Tongxin offers him a chance to win back the drink, and Bai Qiao wonders what evil plan she has up her sleeve this time. She asks if he rejected someone last week, making Bai Qiao wonder how the hell she knows about it. Bai Qiao says he never did such a thing and tells her she lost, so she takes a gulp of the drink and tells him he can have the rest. Bai Qiao knows the White Witch is doing this on purpose, but she tells him it's late and she has to head home. She then leaves him with the bottle, unsure what to do. The next morning, Bai Qiao wakes up hungry and realizes he can't survive long without Lulu. He hears a knock at the door and thinks Lulu might have returned to save him, but it's actually Yoyo back to being a nuisance. Bai Qiao refuses to believe the witch standing in front of him isn't Lulu, with a bad makeover, so Yoyo reminds him they're supposed to start working together that day. Yoyo says she brought over some delicious cakes and asks for his sister, so Bai Qiao decides he can't lose to a woman 2 days in a row. He says his parents are also around and she can't wait to greet them, which shocks Yoyo, who thought they were at work. Bai Qiao says they return for the holiday, so Yoyo says she'll rather wait downstairs since she's not emotionally prepared. Bai Qiao grabs her empty head and starts calling out for his parents, making Yoyo cry till he reveals it was all a joke and no one's home. Yoyo calls him mean for tricking her, then bites his arm as payback. Later in Auntie Cheng's store, Yoyo puts the finishing touches on Bai Qiao's outfit for the day. Bai Qiao tells her to stop biting his right hand, cause he uses it for special purposes, so Yoyo says she'll put her mouth somewhere else next time. Suddenly, the store manager, Miss Lee, appears and asks who he is. Yoyo says he's their new part-time worker because he owes her mom. Miss Lee teases them for wearing matching couples' outfits, but Yoyo frustratedly says they're just friends. Bai Qiao remembers the same thing happening with his neighbor yesterday and decides to play dumb, but Miss Lee promises not to tell Auntie Cheng of their secret work romance. She then shoves them to the bakery kitchen and says the stuff on the desk was specially arranged by Auntie Cheng. When she leaves them alone, Yoyo says Miss Lee thinks they're a good match, but Bai Qiao insists it was all a misunderstanding. Bai Qiao walks off, ready to get to work, when Yoyo notices a piping bag. She gets a wicked idea and goes to join Bai Qiao to discover what her mom left behind for them. They both stare down the box, speechless. Yoyo starts teasing Bai Qiao for looking so shocked and claims she was just playing along. In the box is a cake and instructions to help decorate it as an apology cake. Yoyo threatens that if he doesn't do it, his job will be over, and insists that it's really not targeted at anyone. Bai Qiao agrees and they get to work, so Yoyo asks if it's his first time making a cake. While he answers, Yoyo makes a plan to shove her cream in his face and take an embarrassing picture of him. She then goes behind him and tries to get him in the right position while she holds the cream behind her. Bai Qiao is nervous about how close she is, but when Yoyo sees her moment, she lifts her hand and slaps him in the face. Bai Qiao wonders what he did to deserve this, while Yoyo wonders where the cream went. When she looks back, she slips on it and starts to fall, so she grabs Bai Qiao for support. At that moment, Miss Lee decides to check on them, but her eyes are violated by the sight of Yoyo trying to give Bai Qiao's backshots. Miss Lee apologizes for interrupting and disappears before they clear the misunderstanding. Yoyo starts to cry and blames Bai Qiao, then asks if he's going to comfort her. When he says there's no need, Yoyo grabs the piping bag for her second sneak attack, but unfortunately, the idiot didn't cut the tip and it ends up exploding on her. Bai Qiao suddenly points out the smoking oven and asks if that's normal, so Yoyo kicks him out and tells him to leave it to her. Bai Qiao acts concerned till he wonders what kind of crackhead summer job this is. Suddenly, a customer calls out to him and asks if he's new. After explaining the situation, she asks him to stay for a chat, saying he reminds her of her last boyfriend. Bai Qiao can tell this isn't going to end well, and sure enough, the woman offers to pay him more than the store just to stay with her after work. Bai Qiao can't believe his ears when Yoyo comes up behind him and asks what's going on. She tells him Miss Lee is asking for him and pushes him to leave quickly. When the customer asks who she is, Yoyo covers his mouth and says he's her boyfriend. The customer suddenly runs off, so Yoyo scolds Bai Qiao for being an idiot and almost selling himself to the streets. She then offers to give him money if he's that desperate, but Bai Qiao says that he's really not. Auntie Cheng walks in as they begin to argue over the matter. She's happy to see they're getting along nicely and asks if they want to have dinner together as her treat. On the way, Auntie Cheng asks how the cake making went, so Yoyo interrupts and says it went well, adding that Bai Kao should be their new billboard since he attracts rich women customers. Auntie Cheng suddenly asks if Yoyo's tired from staying up all night. Yoyo tries to deny it, but her mom remembers her wondering what to wear the next day. Yoyo claims it was just a line from a movie, so her mom mentions how she planned to have her mom drop her at his house and make up a dumb excuse for being there. At this point, Yoyo threatens to jump out of the car if her mom keeps exposing her, but it doesn't work. Later, Auntie Cheng tells them to decide what to eat while she finds a parking space. Then she signals Yoyo to go for it and drives off. Moments later, she texts Yoyo that she couldn't find any space and she'll be heading home. When Baekyo tries to ask what's up, Yoyo hides it from him and changes the subject. She asks why he's barely been checking his phone. Baekyo says he doesn't play games that require checking in and Lulu was fine last time he checked, so there's no reason to. That's when Yoyo wonders what kind of backward relationship he has with Ningyi that they don't communicate. Later on, Yoyo places an order at a restaurant while Baekyo checks in with Lulu. The waitress notices the cake box and offers to arrange their special package. Lulu starts promising him all the food she'll cook for him when she returns so he'll stay away from all those bad women. Suddenly, Wook-Doyewon hijacks the phone and starts running her mouth, so Baekyo gladly ends the call and returns to his awkward not date. As they eat, Baekyo calls Yoyo a picky eater, so Yoyo insists there's nothing wrong with that since she's been growing up regardless. Unfortunately, her copium loses effect when she sees the high difference between them and threatens to chew Baekyo out. Suddenly, the waitress returns with a camera and a birthday celebration package. Baekyo tries to correct the misunderstanding, so Yoyo kicks his foot and says that the cake is actually for another special event. She asks for them to help slice it and does a cake reveal. Confetti goes flying everywhere as Yoyo celebrates knowing each other for 947 days. Baekyo can't believe Yoyo has kept track of every day since they met, but he smiles as he thinks she's really a cute idiot. Afterward, the pair enjoy some ice cream as Yoyo looks at their photos together. Baekyo asks if today's ice cream tastes better than their last one, so Yoyo agrees till she realizes what happened the last time they had ice cream. She hopes he's not about to plunge another knife into her heart, but Baekyo shyly says he just wants to know what she likes about him. Yoyo says his question is like a book owner refusing to sell you his book, but still asking you to compliment his work. However, she agrees to tell him if he answers something in return, so she asks if he and Ningnai have no feelings for each other. For Yoyo, liking someone is very difficult to describe. It's like a scale that moves toward a good feeling the more you get to know someone. It balances when you're just normal friends, but when the scale tips unexpectedly, the friendship now becomes another type of liking. For her, love is the accumulation of daily routines. From noticing someone to learning their shoe size, to knowing the awkward smile they make when they bump into someone. That's why she knows Baekyo and Ningyi aren't in love. Baekyo tries to deny it, so Yoyo explains that she was never sad that he rejected her, but she was sad because she thought they couldn't be friends anymore. She confessed because if it went well, she could have won big, and if not, at least she still had her friend. Baekyo points out his girlfriend, but Yoyo says she might be an idiot, but she's no fool. She asks if it's really possible to fall in love 2 days after she confessed, and even points out their non-existent communication. Baekyo insists that they're dating regardless, so Yoyo warns him not to blame her if they're both found out as phonies. She then clears the air and says she's not sad to be rejected by him, but she's afraid that he'll hate her. Baekyo assures her he doesn't hate, so Yoyo says that's good enough for her and walks off. He then laments how she saw through the act when he gets a phone call. It turns out to be Lulu who invites him over. Later, Baekyo sits with Lulu at the pool as she live streams to her audience. Wook-Doyewon immediately rushes over to show she's also around, but Lulu warns her she's ruining the live stream. When Baekyo asks why Lulu is doing this, she reveals that she saw a sibling pair doing the same thing last week and decided to try it to feel better. Wook-Doyewon asks why she's trying to feel better, so Lulu reveals that she received another unexpected confession. Baekyo immediately shoots Wook-Doyewon a cold look, but she insists she wasn't the one that confessed. Lulu says she rejected the loser and Baekyo is glad it runs in the family. Suddenly, Lulu asks him if has anyone he likes, so Baekyo nervously asks why she would say that. Lulu explains that he's been acting strange and coming home late, but Baekyo blames it on the student council. Wook-Doyewon calls him to the side and tells him she's been worried about his health. When Baekyo asks why that is, she says Lulu had been coming late to school and disappearing once it ends, so she thought Lulu was taking care of him. That's why she needs Bai Kyo to be healthy so she can stick to Lulu like glue. Bai Kyo wonders what's going on with Lulu when he suddenly notices Yoyo delivering a cake. When she notices him, she excitedly jumps to hug him, but he keeps her stink breath at arm's length. Yoyo starts inspecting his body for any strange marks and sees that his trunks aren't Ningyi's type, which means she's not there. Bai Kyo hears his sister looking for him and realizes she can't see him with Yoyo. He immediately drags Yoyo off to hide in the sauna room where their bodies stick close together, causing Yoyo to complain about the heat. However, they can't leave as Wu Xiaoyuan is right outside looking for them. Meanwhile, Tang Xin is busy pumping iron when she sees a notification of Lulu's live stream with her brother, which gives her an idea. Bai Kyo texts Lulu to return to the pool as he only went to the bathroom, so the girls head back. Unfortunately, Yoyo already fainted from the heat, so Bai Kyo tries to get until he realizes what this looks like. He carries out and dumps her on a random bench, then escapes into the pool. Suddenly, he receives a note inviting him to the spa, and it turns out to be Tang Xin. Thankfully, Lulu hasn't spotted her arch-nemesis, so Bai Kyo tries to slip away. Lulu asks where he's going, so he says he needs to take a piss again and runs off. He asks Tang Xin what she's doing there, but she says she just wants to say hello. Bai Kyo tries to leave, but Tang Xin pulls him back and says her towel will fall off if he doesn't help her pinch it. Bai Kyo tells her to ask the receptionist for a clip and starts to leave. So Tang Xin drops the towel, making Bai Kyo turn back. Thankfully, she's just in a lace bathing suit, which is almost as bad, so Bai Kyo covers her up so no one sees her. Suddenly, he hears the demon sister activate her witch hunt sensors, so Bai Kyo freaks out, wondering what to do. Tang Xin tries to call out to Lulu, so Bai Kyo grabs her, jumps into the pool, and covers her mouth while Lulu stares at them with death in her eyes. At the same time, Yoyo wakes up and laments getting abandoned while her tantrum alerts Ningyi, who's sitting nearby. As Lulu looks into the pool, Bai Kyo and Tang Xin hide below a towel. Tang Xin starts to get naughty and wraps her legs around him. Then she swims past him, showing him angles he's never seen on land. Suddenly, Tang Xin realizes she's out of oxygen and decides to borrow some of Bai Kyo's. However, before she can suck the air out of him, Ningyi grabs him out of the water. She asks Tang Xin what she's doing there, and Tang Xin gets flustered till she remembers she's a worthy contender. She says she's showing Bai Kyo around her family's spa and tries to take him away, but Ningyi drags him back and asks if he's not her boyfriend. Ningyi insists she'd like to talk to Bai Kyo privately, so Tang Xin happily agrees and tells him to meet her at their usual spot. But in reality, Tang Xin is mad as hell. Suddenly, she notices a moving bush and wonders if that's the girl that Shen Wei said confessed to Bai Kyo. She then decides to follow the idea of spying on Bai Kyo secretly. Meanwhile, Ningyi informs Bai Kyo that she got rid of Lulu. Then she asks where she can get design magazines on coated paper. Bai Kyo offers to take her to one of the university shops, but Ningyi says the prices weren't affordable. Bai Kyo notices Yoyo spying and asks what she's doing there, so Yoyo says she's watching them. Bai Kyo tells Ningyi they should change seats, but as he stands up, Yoyo grabs his foot. At the same time, Tang Xin returns to offer Bai Kyo a drink when she sees him diving headfirst for Ningyi's pebbles. Bai Kyo wonders why his problems are appearing at the same time when he sees he's heading to a satisfying conclusion. Unfortunately, Tang Xin stops him from reaching heaven by pulling back his trunks. Bai Kyo screams for the girls to let go while Lulu walks up and witnesses the chaos unfold. She calls out for her brother, and everyone turns to face her while Bai Kyo's soul flees his body. Then his lifeless body knocks all three girls right into the pool. Chapter 34. Some days later, Bai Kyo thinks it's strange that since the spa incident, Lulu has been very sweet and gentle. Bai Kyo asks her if she's been taken over by a parasite, so Lulu says that she's happy he isn't a friendless loser. Bai Kyo asks if she really isn't mad, so Lulu tells him to head to school while she waits for Wu Xiaoyuan. On his way, Bai Kyo remembers Wu Xiaoyuan lamenting about not going to school with Lulu, which means something's up. Suddenly, he spots Ningyi waiting for him in a kimono. When he asks what's with the outfit, she says she's modeling for the Chinese costume club later. Bai Kyo says he almost thought she was a princess, so Ningyi teases him for calling her noble, but when he gets flustered, she says she was just acting her fake girlfriend role. Bai Kyo leads them to the print store, when Ningyi stops him from getting flattened by Truck-kun. The force causes him to get too close to Ningyi, which sends them pulling back faster than your future hairline. Later, Ningyi talks to the store owner who tells her he can't reduce the price. Since it exceeds her budget, she leaves the store disappointed. Bai Qiao offers to try, but Ningyi thinks it's a waste of time, so he slicks his hair back and tells her to let him cook. When he enters the store, the man calls the same price for him, so Bai Qiao hits him with some genius-level math to get some percentage off, assuring him that it will pay him since he'll be getting regular orders every month. The store owner tries to fight back, but he gets overwhelmed by Bai Qiao's ramblings. Ningyi watches from behind and is impressed by Bai Qiao's haggling skills when someone calls out to her from behind. It turns out to be her senior, Xiaokan, who is very touchy-feely. As Bai Qiao sees them, another girl named Seokyu walks up and tells him Xiaokan likes to sniff people like a dog. Both girls were literature club members who pressured Ningyi into becoming president. Suddenly, Xiaokan goes running toward Bai Qiao to sniff his cheeks, but Ningyi holds her back with her leash. Seokyu asks to speak with Bai Qiao privately and says it's quite rare that Ningyi would ask someone for help. She then asks what he thinks of Ningyi, so Bai Qiao goes into monologue mode just to think up an answer, and all he comes up with is that she's a very nice person. When Seokyu asks what else, he says she's like a fairy. Seokyu says she might seem quite cold on the outside, but when he gets to know her, he'll see it's just a facade. She then tells him to ask for help if he needs it, and leaves Ningyi to him. Later, Ningyi asks him how things are with Yoeo, so he thanks her for helping him out the other day. Ningyi suddenly asks what it feels like to be in love, so Bai Qiao thinks that such a literary girl question, unlike the two other fools in his life. Bai Qiao likens it to a type of empathy that can be shown through emotions and expressions. She then takes it literally and tries to make a charming smile, which cues the romantic music and love bubbles. Then she apologizes for failing to make a cute face. While they discuss their plans for the next day, Lulu is nearby watching them and makes a call to her mom. Some hours later, Bai Qiao gets a call from his mom asking him to attend to an urgent matter. Meanwhile, Ningyi attends her photo shoot while Lulu continues to stalk her angrily. Later, Bai Qiao turns heads down the street as everyone wonders what the hell that smell is. Bai Qiao's urgent mission was to pick up durians from his uncle's house. It was apparently Lulu's idea to share some with her relatives, so Bai Qiao decides to call Lulu about it. When she picks up, he asks her where she is, so she claims she's in the vegetable market and asks what he wants to eat. Bai Qiao wonders how she could have gotten there so fast and starts asking more questions, so Lulu makes up an excuse and hangs up. Bai Qiao figures that the background noise wasn't a vegetable market. He then remembers what Wu Xiaoyuan told him about Lulu and guesses Lulu is hiding something from him. From the background noise, he deduces that she must be in a desert shop, and since she got their mom to send him far away, he knows just where she'll be. Later, he finds Lulu sitting with Ningyi and almost has a heart attack. Meanwhile, Lulu asks Ningyi to leave her brother. When Ningyi asks why, Lulu says Bai Qiao doesn't like anyone, including her, so it must mean that Ningyi probably has some dirt on him, so she begs Ningyi to leave him alone. Bai Qiao sweats rivers as he watches the confrontation play out. When Ningyi refuses to respond, Lulu slides her card and offers her 100,000 yuan to leave her brother quickly. Before Ningyi can respond, Bai Qiao steps out to talk to her. However, when she sees him, she runs for it without looking back, so Ningyi immediately grabs his hand and tells him to go after her. Moments later, Bai Qiao is racing down the street, regretting that he didn't tell Lulu about his fake relationship. When she had asked if he liked anyone, she clearly already knew about Ningyi. He finally figures out where she would have gone and finds her on a swing set. Lulu tries to run again, but Bai Qiao warns her that he'll ignore her if she does. She reluctantly returns to the swing and asks how he found her. Before he can say much, she hands him a bread bun to eat. After taking a bit, he tries to continue, but she stuffs a drink in his mouth too. Next, she hands him an apple, but this time, she tells him not to hate her. Bai Qiao says he can never forgive her, so Lulu starts crying. She was prepared for this outcome ever since she started stalking him every morning. When she found out who Ningyi was, she planned to pay her to leave, but she still didn't want Bai Qiao to hate her. Bai Qiao says he can never forgive her for trying to eat durian without his permission. When he insists watermelons are much better, Lulu tells him they were talking about something. Bai Qiao finally clears the air and says he and Ningyi are just friends. He finally told her the truth about the fake relationship which originated from Yoeo's confession. Lulu asked how long the fake ship would last, so Bai Qiao avoided answering, knowing Yoyo was nowhere near giving up. Now that they've cleared things up, Lulu gives him a big hug, and they finally go home. Bai Qiao goes back to his normal school life when Dumb and Dumber appear and say something bad is happening. The boys tell him he has to make a life-threatening choice. He has to choose who he prefers between Tong Xin and Yoyo. Later, Bai Qiao gets called to a teacher's office where Yoyo and Tong Xin are waiting. The teacher says Bai Qiao's class needs to be split between Yoyo and Tong Xin's classes for their next project and asks what he thinks. Bai Qiao is relieved it's nothing like those idiots made it seem until he realizes he's choosing which side to suffer on. Tong Xin already looks like she's plotted something evil as usual, but even Yoyo looks like she's up to no good. Bai Qiao suggests he discusses with the other students first, but Tong Xin interrupts and says splitting the two classes is probably a bad idea as some will feel left out. The teacher agrees with her point and asks if they have any good ideas. Unsurprisingly, Tong Xin had an idea ready to go. In the end, all three classes were randomly grouped into two. Before they start, the teacher tells them to team up in groups of 3. Immediately, the boys start begging to get grouped with either Yoyo or Tong Xin. Simp and Simper try to dump their tasks on Bai Qiao so they can join in the auction for the girls, but Bai Qiao refuses to let them go. The boys say he can't relate since he has a girlfriend, but Bai Qiao insists they be teammates instead. Just then, Tong Xin walks up and asks if they've already formed a group of 3. The boys immediately deny Bai Qiao, so Tong Xin asks if she can join Bai Qiao's group. Yoyo also walks up and asks to join his group, sending one of the boys to an early grave. When the teacher sees everyone has formed a group except those 5, she asks the boys if they can cook. The Simp brothers immediately turn to Michelin chefs, while Bai Qiao assures her he won't burn the school down. Because of this, she pairs the 2 master chefs together and leaves Bai Qiao in a group with the girls. Yoyo happily runs to get the ingredients while Tong Xin pretends she didn't set this up. But worst of all, the Virgin ambassadors promise to watch Bai Qiao's every move. While the girls get to work, one of the boys asks what Tong Xin is like. Bai Qiao would like to be honest and say she eats children for breakfast, but when Tong Xin displays her proficiency in knot twirling, Bai Qiao assures the boys she's beautiful and gentle. The other simp asks what Yoyo's like, and Bai Qiao wonders what to say about the person he rejected. Yoyo also grabs a knife, making Bai Qiao wonder if he's safe, but before he can answer, Tong Xin interrupts. She teases him to come back to work, and the simp twins start salivating. Tong Xin starts pouring a drink with Bai Qiao's name, so Yoyo asks what it is. Tong Xin explains that it's a new flavor developed by Bai Qiao's dad, and she planned to use it on her chicken, but now there's not much left. As Tong Xin watches Yoyo, she wonders if she's the one Shen Wei was referring to and plans to find out. She offers Yoyo a drink, so Yoyo puts her mouth on the cup too. The girls realize how weird this looks when Bai Qiao calls out to them. They immediately separate and scold him for not doing his work, making Bai Qiao realize they're both mad. Yoyo asks Tong Xin what Bai Qiao is like in the student council, but when Tong Xin wonders why she's asking, Yoyo says it's nothing. Tong Xin teases Bai Qiao by grabbing his cheeks, then she calls him lazy, but he's pretty average most of the time. Bai Qiao worries about the girl bonding and tries to put the focus on the food. Tong Xin says Bai Qiao is quite popular with the ladies, even though he's in a relationship with Ning Ni. She then asks what Yoyo's opinion on the matter is, so Yoyo says it's fine if they like each other. However, Tong Xin asks that if Bai Qiao is already a taken man, doesn't it make sense for the other girls to move on with their lives? Do you think Tong Xin will stop Yoyo's crush once and for all? Comment fake girlfriends if you want to find out in our part 2. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel for similar content. And as always, thanks for watching.